it play and call it work.
Hey there folks, welcome to this Necron 8th edition Codex review brought to you by Luka here at MiniWarGaming. And today we've got the Necron Codex. And I can't actually complain about it. I'm almost 100% happy with this, maybe 99% if not 100%. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I want to complain about right away. For this review, I tend to ramble a lot of the time, but what I would love to do is simply go over all of the major changes in the rules for those that are. There's not a whole lot of those changes. In fact, not that many at all. Anyways, I'm going to go over those rules changes, the major changes to the models in the book, at least the ones that I find are major. There's a lot of minor ones that aren't really worth mentioning. And a lot of them did stay the same, which is fine, because a lot of the stuff was fine before. They just were, well, too expensive. They had to be brought in line with the rest of the model lines and the codexes that are being brought out. Everything's obviously cheaper for them. And then I'll go into the new rules, and I'll explain how they work and how I feel they work with certain things in the book. And then, of course, stratagems and relics, and then I'll probably sign it off there. So that's what you can hope to see in this video. If I ramble, I apologize. I often end up doing that just because I guess I love hearing the sound of my own voice, even though when I watch my own videos, I hate the sound of my own voice, though I feel like everyone kind of goes through that. No one likes the sound of their own voice. Unless you're a singer, then you probably hate the sound of your own voice anyways. Let's start off with like the main rules, obviously like living metal and reanimation protocols. If you are a Necron player, or if you play against Necrons a lot, and you are either a fan or hate those rules, well, they're the same. Other than they've been kind of updated in this book to bring the FAQ in line with the rules. So essentially, you can't reanimate models that have fled the battlefield. Which, I've never actually looked at the models fleeing the battlefield when it came to them taking morale checks or leadership checks back in 7th edition. I've always kind of pictured them just crumbling. Like just failing, their systems fail and they crumble down. And then they just reanimate. Well, I guess if they fled in the past, they never reanimated back in like 5th edition, and they will be back. They failed their leadership check, everything would run, nothing would reanimate. 7th edition, they just had the feel no pain, which is super lame. It was pretty powerful, but not fun at all. I'm really happy with the new reanimation protocol rules, as I said in my index review many months ago. So yeah, the reanimation protocols are still the roll a d6 for each slain model from this unit, unless the unit's been completely destroyed. They put that there. I don't know if they needed to, but they did. At the beginning of your turn, do not roll for models that have fled the unit. On a 5-up, the model's reanimation protocol is activated and is returned to the unit with its full complement of wounds. Otherwise, it remains inactive, although you can roll again at the start of each of your subsequent turns. So it's good they put that in, because there was a lot of issues I had at first with people saying there's no way you can keep reanimating over and over and over again. But no, you can. I mean, that was always the intent. And it was the same thing with like Lich Guard and Destroyers. When they would reanimate, they would come, like people was like, no, there's no way they come back with full wounds, blah, blah, blah. No, yeah, they do. They do. And it's stated here now, which is clear, easy to describe to your opponent, or easy to show your opponent. It's actually a nice long paragraph, which describes the rule thoroughly. So hopefully there won't be any confusion or misunderstanding with this. When a model's reanimation protocols activate, you set it up normally within coherency in this unit. Oh, and it also states that you don't reanimate like one model at a time. You essentially reanimate all the models at once, so they all have to be placed in coherency with whatever models were remaining on the table. I mean, so this is all how it was played before, but they just go into greater detail about how it's done. Living metal, exactly the same. You regain 1 wound at the beginning of your turn. Nothing crazy. Now going over pretty much going over the models now. We got Imhotep the Stormlord, first one up. I'm not going to go over every model. Again, I'm going to go over the ones that changed. He didn't really change that much other than his Lord of the Storm ability is a little bit better. At least I looked at it earlier and I'm pretty sure it's different. So this one is now once per battle in your shooting phase, Imhotep can call the storm. You pick an enemy unit within 48 inches of Imhotep, other than a character, and roll a d6. On a 2-up, they suffer that many more wounds. So they could suffer 6, they could suffer 2. On a 1, it fails. And then you roll a d6 for each enemy unit within 6 inches of that unit, which is a pretty big bubble. So you pick a big enough unit, your opponent maybe misdeploys, and you get a few 6s, they suffer d3 mortal wounds. You have to roll a 6 for each of those, so it's unlikely to happen, but oh well. And you can still, you gain your 1 command point from them. You get to reroll hit rolls of flayed one or Sotek flayed ones nearby him, and my will be done. His my will be done can choose 2 things. Other than that, nothing crazy. All the other characters are pretty much the same. I didn't notice anything crazy. Luminor Caesarea still gives the strength, toughness, and ballistic skill improvement by 1. Vargard is the exact same. Oh, sorry. One thing to note is Vargard being a Lord type character. Lords don't reroll morale anymore. They reroll wound rolls of 1. So it's a 6-inch bubble for this one. Yeah, so it's a 6-inch bubble of your Lords rolling 1 to wound. That's a major change. Because no one brought Lords before. At least I never seen Lords being brought before. I could see Lords being brought now, except they're still slow, and there's no way to make them faster. So you got them with a unit of... well, I guess Rays are a bad example. Rays are always going to be outrunning them. Lich Guard, per se. Lich Guard, you know, they move. The biggest problem with 8th edition now is keeping your characters up with combat units that like to charge a lot. Because you always have to daisy chain your models back. Then you have to kind of weigh if it's worth to lose like 2 attacks to gain rerolling 1s on wounding, for example, for the Lord. I probably won't be bringing Lords. That's just my personal opinion. Just because they'll never keep up to anything, right? Or else you're stuck daisy chaining your entire army, and I hate daisy chaining, so you probably won't see me bringing Lords too much. But that is a notable change. Enrakir the Traveler, Trays the Infinite, Catacomb Command Barge. I don't believe any of these changed. No, nothing crazy, other than the weapons that they're equipped with. But I'll go into weapon details in a moment. Overlords haven't changed, other than points decrease. The Overlord went down to, I believe, like 96 points from 110, so... It is, like, expect point decreases across the board, other than a few models that maybe went up 1 or 2 points. I think the Tesseract Vault specifically went up 4 points, but that's well worth what it gained, which, again, when I get to it, I'll get into detail. That's one of them I really want to touch up on. So the only notable change so far is the Lord, with his rerolling 1s. Necron Warriors and Immortals, exact same. Nothing, no crazy change on them. They're still same stats, same point cost. Same rules. Lich Guard, nothing crazy there. Same thing. They went down a point, so which was nice. One thing, like the Dispersion Shield is still, I believe I'll get to that one, but I'm pretty sure it's 12 points a model still. So it feels weird buying a 4-up invulnerable save for 12 points when like Space Marines get it for a 5 point on the Storm Shields. Except, I mean, it's different codexes, so I know it's not really relevant. I don't know. It seems expensive, but without fail, Lich Guard with their Dispersion Shield and Hyperface Swords, I don't know why, are my favorite model on the table. I just think they're so cool. These super tough, super strong models with a shield and axe, or sword, I guess. It looks like an axe in some cases, running right up the middle of the battlefield and protecting your mortals and warriors. It's just I feel like it's a thematic model, because especially they got the Lookout Sir rule built in, what's Guardian Protocols, where they take mortal wounds off of your characters, which is hard to remember. Often my Lich Guard aren't near my characters at any point to do that, because again, they run off on their own and charge other things, and your characters end up falling behind. Flayed Ones are one of the notable changes. Not huge changes, but a notable change, just because they went from 4 attacks to 3 attacks. Now, that is a nerf for their profile, but they also went down drastically in points. They're only 17 points a model now, as opposed to their 23, I believe. So they went down 6 points a model. You bring a squad of 20, it's 120 points you just saved. You just saved 120 points on your Flayed Ones, because I'm okay with that. I think that is amazing, because that's a squad of 10 Necron Warriors right there when you think about it. You're like Flayed Ones, they didn't need 4 attacks each. It was, for what you're putting them against, 4 attacks each was always overkill for me. Always overkill. And I kind of hated paying that little extra premium for it. 3 attacks is more than enough for 17 points a model. They're my second favorite unit, just because I tend to like melee-oriented Necrons. But I'll be playing Sotek mostly. Anyways, but yeah, Flayed Ones, 3 attacks each, 17 points a model. Huge decrease. And still, I'm going to assume, I haven't actually played it yet, just as useful for what you want them to do. They're going to go after lightly armored enemies. They're going to struggle against 2-up armor. I mean, you throw enough attacks at 2-up armor saves, I'm sure they'll fail some. But when you're fighting like Riptide or something with 12 wounds or more, and it's got a 2-up save, these aren't the best. Or like a squad of 10 Terminators, or something like, I remember one game I had them against Typhus, and they just never killed them. It took forever. Never killed them. This was before the Death Guard Codex came out. Like, that's just an example. They're only winning them on 5s, you're rolling 2-up save. It's not great. You want them against toughness 4 things with anything that's toughness 4, they're great against. Anything T5, as long as they have a bad save, it's fine. Or T5 plus, I should say. But yeah, you want to shoot at toughness 4 things with a good save, or toughness 5 things with a bad save. Praetorians, no change there. Same thing. Stalker, same. So if you're familiar with these rules, I don't have to go over them. Stalker, obviously, given the ones to hit. The next notable change are the shards. The Deceiver, the Nightbringer, and the unnamed Transcendent shard. They are a heck of a lot better just because there's not 3 powers anymore, there's 6. And each one of those 3 original powers got essentially stronger in a way. The most notable one is Antimatter Meteor, which is the one I like to take the most. Times Arrow I liked, but it wasn't very reliable. Antimatter Meteor was the nearest enemy unit within 24 inches on a 2-up takes D3 mortal wounds. It's the same, but now if you roll a 6, it's D6 mortal wounds instead of the D3. But the biggest change with the shards are the fact that they can take 2 powers now, and they can use 1. So, yeah, they know 2 powers, and they can use 1 of its power at the end of it. Oh, and it's also used in the end of your movement phase. So they clarified anything with, like, shooting abilities. It was an ability used in your shooting phase, so I know I had questions with, oh, can you advance and use that, or stuff like that, right? So they just put it in the movement phase just to, I would assume, just to clear it up, no problem. And because it doesn't really change much, because you go right from the movement phase to the shooting phase. So yeah, in my head, I think it's just a clarifying change, just so people don't get confused. The Nightbringer, other than that though, their rules have stayed the same. So Grand Illusion from the Deceiver is the exact same, where you can redeploy. So at the beginning of your first battle, but before the first turn begins, you can remove the shard of the Deceiver and or up to D3 other friendly Necron units from the battlefield, then set them up again anywhere more than 12 inches away from enemy models. If you do so, these units cannot charge in your first turn, which is fine because you only ever use that for Knight size and Monoliths anyways, which allow you to disembark models right away on the first turn and get an Alpha Strike in. Now, I'll go into some strategies that I would probably use for that and what Dynasty I would use for that when I get to the Dynasties. The Nightbringer is the exact same, other than it can know 2 powers. Oh, and I'm pretty sure its weapon changed in a way where it's Strength X instead of Strength 7, and it's always moves on a 2-up unless it's starting a vehicle, which it has a strength characteristic of 7. I don't know if that's actually a change or not. I can't remember. But yeah, big change for the shards. They get to know 2 powers and use 1 at the end of your movement phase. All the powers are better, and there's more powers now. So that's something to look forward to. If you're a huge fan of the shards, or you weren't too sure about them before, they're a lot better now, guys, so try them out. I guarantee you'll like them. They're all still characters. They're all still 8 wounds, so they can't be targeted in the shooting phase. Next notable change, Wraiths. The Wraiths went up in point costs, but with that, the rumors were true. They got the -2 AP on their basic swings and 2 damage each, and that's the same for the Whip Coils. So the Whip Coils and the Vicious Claws have the exact same profile, where it's -2 AP, 2 damage, and Whip Coils give you the same rule if they're slain in the fight phase. You don't remove them until the end, and then you get to pile them in a fight still, and then you remove them. This is something I feel they needed quite a bit. Oh, their stats stay the same, by the way. Oh, 4-up armor save, but they have Wraith form. I'm going to check one thing. Yeah, I just wanted to go check something in the index, and the Wraiths went from 38 to 55 points, so they went up 17 points a model. It's definitely worth -2 AP, 2 damage each, and one major change on Wraith form. So it's still your 3-up invulnerable save. You can still move across models and terrain as if they were not there. Models in this unit can shoot and charge even if they fell back this turn. That's a massive change for Wraiths. That's huge, guys. So your Wraiths can no longer get tied up. I mean, you could always fall back, right? And you had Wraith form, so you could fall back in any direction. It was fine. But now you can fall back and charge something else. Your Wraiths are not in an optimal fight. That's fine. Bam, fall back, shoot something, charge something else. I don't normally buy the guns for them. I just kind of buy them stock with their Vicious Claws, especially now that they're -2, 2 damage each. The pistol's still the same profile, and so is the Beamer. It's strength 4, -3, 1 damage, more wounds on a 6-up, but I don't know, it's not really worth it. I just like the Vicious Claws. Huge guys, falling back, charging. You don't really get that. I think Harlequins get that. Oh, I guess there's a couple other things too, but now Wraiths have it too. Canoptic Scarabs, they got changed to a 4-up weapon skill, which is more in line with their older rules in 7th edition and previous editions, when they were only weapon skill 2. So that was mostly hitting everything in the game on a 4-up, if not a 5-up, when they had weapon skill 5. That's an old rules. That's an old thing though. Yeah, it was kind of weird that they hit on 3-ups. Matt also agreed he found that very weird when we were playing. That's just the only change for them though. Other than that, they got the fly keyword. Just because it kind of helps. It helps represent that they kind of go through they weave their way through everything, so they're not really impeded by anything. They don't have the rules that raids had, where raids have, where they're allowed to ignore all models and terrain, but they have fly now. So that's going to be one thing to note. It kind of randomly just pops up there. Scarabs have fly. I don't think they had it before. Tomb Blades and Destroyers are up next for fast attack. Worth mentioning. Again, these are all major changes that I feel like I needed to mention. The rest are all, again, the same. So the Tomb Blades, the exact same, except for they have a built-in brand new rule, evasion engrams. Evasion engrams. You're always -1 to hit them in the shooting phase. That is just it. You're like same points, same loadouts, same everything, -1 to hit. Simple as that. Does that make them more usable? I found that they were usable before. Like, they just had a ton of shots. They moved really fast. They had reanimation protocols, except they kind of died a lot. You can only have 6 in unit. If you have more than 6 in unit, that'd be pretty great. But you don't really get to see bikes with more than 6 in a squad often. So I guess can't really complain too much about that. Obviously, with reanimation protocols, you want to spam bigger units. Destroyers, I find, are probably one of them being one of my favorite units in the Codex. So it's like Lich Guard Destroyers, Flayed Ones. This, just because of their high mobility and the amount of damage they can put out, it's not so much that their rules change. It's the Gauss cannon that changed. It's now strength 6 and heavy 3 instead of heavy 2, and that's it. It's the same point cost. In fact, the actual destroyer base itself went down in points. So they're only 50 points a model now instead of 63. Went down 13 points a model, everyone, and they're strength 6, 3 shots each instead of strength 5, 2 shots each. That's huge. Only because against later vehicles that are toughness 6. So I'm thinking, like, off the top of my head, Sentinels for the... Oh, man, drawing a blank. Imperial Astra Militarum. What else? A lot of Eldar, lighter Eldar vehicles, like the Jukari stuff and Harlequin stuff, are all T6. So you're winning them on 4s, which is always nice. Other than that, you're winning things that are toughness 3 on 2s. But still, I mostly only care about the +1 shot. So that's a squad of 6 with 18 shots instead of just 12 shots. That's just 6 extra shots you got out of nowhere, just because why not? And that's their most notable change. There's a stratagem that affects destroyers specifically that I would probably use every game if I bring destroyers, but I'll get to that when I get to the stratagems. Heavy destroyers, the heavy Gauss cannon is the exact same rules on that. The spiders, they have their Scarab Hive rule changed a little bit, but I mean, I still don't see myself using the spiders at all. They're the only psychic defense we have. Even with the stratagems, spiders are the only psychic defense we have still. I don't know, I'm sure, I know there's people out there that bring them just because they hate not having a psychic defense. I find I just don't bring them. It's just, they work well with scarabs, but your scarabs have to stay near them, and they can only bring back scarab bases that have already died through it, like, almost like reanimation protocols, but it's just on a 2-up, you get to put a base back in, and that's for each spider you have, so each spider can target 1 unit of scarabs and add a base back to it if it's not over the maximum that you bought, which is you can buy up to 9. Monoliths are the same, which is fine, I suppose. Even when they arrive from reserves or their deep strike kind of thing, they still come 12 inches away. Their profiles are actually they actually got updated towards the FAQ where they actually hit on 3s and not 4s, and then they degrade to 4, 5, 3s, 4s, and 5s instead of 4s, 5s, and 6s to hit, which is fine. I often forgot about that when I was playing them back in the day. I don't know why, even though I knew about it. They're still toughness 8 with 20 wounds and a 3-up save. Now, my only gripe here is I was hoping the monolith was going to go up to a 2-up save. I know it's only 381 points. In fact, I think it might actually be cheaper now. I'll have to double check that. I'm actually just going to check that now. Only because a Land Raider in 7th edition had 14 on all sides, and so did my monolith, except, 381 points, so it's the exact same. Land Raider and monolith had the exact same armor values back in 7th edition, except why does the Land Raider get 2-up save? And I don't. I have more wounds, but I mean, that doesn't amount to a whole lot. I've lost my monolith in one turn to silliness all the time. Every time I bring a monolith, it only survives for one turn usually. Unless I deploy it somewhere really far away. It's only got 24-inch range on all its guns, so that kind of sucks. You can't really go in the back corner and hide from your opponent's heavy weapons. You kind of have to go right in the middle of the battlefield so you have maximum effect. You kind of just plop it down and hopefully it survives. I think it's a cool model still. I think its rules are still pretty fun. So I'll still bring monoliths. I'm not saying I'm not going to bring monoliths. Annihilation barges stay the same. Doomsday Arcs got a pretty notable change. I guess I went on about monoliths for a while there. They didn't actually get any changes. I think their Portal of Exile got more like a proper description when when an enemy unit finishes a charge move within 1 inch of the model. I think before it said when an enemy model charges this vehicle or finishes a charge. I can't remember it was ambiguous before, but it states again only infantry, not vehicles or monsters, or infantry, beasts, and whatever else there is, just not monsters and vehicles. Anyways, that's enough of the monolith. For the Doomsday Arc, it was pretty much a Vindicator before with 72-inch range. Now it has D6 shots instead of D3. That's the one change for the Doomsday Arc. That's big enough to mention. Same points. It's just better. I never really brought them before because they only had D3 shots. I'm going to try a few games with Doomsday Arcs. There's no stratagems that really work well with them, other than the fact that they work well with some dynasties. But at least Necrons have a 72-inch range. Reliable, well, I mean as reliable as D6 shots can be. But it's better than D3. That's all I can say. Strength 10, AP -5, D6 damage, D6 shots instead of just D3. Which is great. That's all I can ask for. As long as they don't move. If they move, they lose a lot of their power. As they always have. Next up, in heavy sports, we have the Transcendent Shard. Still a character. Still has 8 wounds. Except the one draw to him is he doesn't have the special rule. Well, I guess he does have the one special rule, which is... No, actually, he doesn't have that one anymore. They put it somewhere else. Anyways, what I meant was I think it was enemy models within 12 inches of him couldn't claim cover bonuses. Now, his big draw, what you want to draw from is at the beginning of the game, he's got a chart of abilities beside him. He's got 6 abilities. And these range from... Now, these are specific to this shard only, not the named ones. Cosmic Tyrant. This model can use 2 different powers of the Satan at the end of your movement phases instead of only 1. And he's allowed to know 2. Or this one can know... Yeah, he can know 2. So he can use both of his powers at the end of your movement phases every turn if you pick that one. That is really useful, guys. That's super good. And you can just pick that if you wanted to. So the thing is, you can either pick one of these 6 abilities and you'll have it at the beginning of the game, or you can roll 2 dice and get both of those abilities. But you have to, obviously, you can't swap them out. If you roll doubles, you're stuck with that double. Duplicates have no effect. It's just, if you have 2 of the same power, you have 2 of the same power. I would probably just pick Cosmic Tyrant every time. But I mean, there's also immune to natural law, which is add 1 to saving throws. So he's got a 3-up invulnerable save and a 3-up armor save. Ooh. Which is... it's pretty good just because they would die a lot, I find, with that 4-up invulnerable save. A 4-up invulnerable save is useful, but it's not very reliable, whereas the 3-up is much more reliable. So you could, if you're gambling, if you like gambling, you want to throw 2 dice and get both those, that's awesome. Those are probably the 2 best ones. The other 4 are still cool, though. The next one, Sentient Necrodermis. This model regains D3 lost wounds at the start of each of your turns. That kind of goes in tow with the invulnerable save. Like, if you have your 4 up, then you could just heal D3 wounds a turn, but you could just die outright in one go. So I'd rather just have the invulnerable save. Transdimensional Displacement. When this model advances, add 12 inches to its move characteristic for the movement phase instead of rolling a die. Now, normally you only advance D6. This one just lets you flat out go an extra 12 inches when you declare an advance. So he moves 20 inches a turn, which is pretty great for grabbing objectives. And him being a character, he can shuffle around and be pretty safe. That one's also cool. The nice thing about this is I find all 6 of these to be really nice. Entropic Touch, you can reroll failed rerolls for this model in the fight phase. It's strength 7. It's -4 AP, D6 damage on his crackling tendrils. Rerolling wounds is that's like all wounds, not just ones, all wounds. That's pretty great. He does a ton of damage in combat with his 4 attacks that he hits on 2s with. Writhing Worldscape, enemy units do not receive a bonus to their saving throws for being in cover whilst they are within 12 inches of this model. Now, that's the old rule he had. Sorry. My throat is getting a little dry from all the rambling. So that one, it was never that great. I never thought it was amazing. So the first 5 are pretty great. I would probably choose Cosmic Tyrant, where he gets to shoot out 2 powers every turn, just because that's like 2 psychic powers every turn, and these powers are quite powerful. I'll go into detail of them shortly. I think he's actually pretty good. He might be better than the Night. I like the Nightbringer a lot because of his gaze. I love that attack. His D6 shooting assault D6 shots in the shooting phase. It's strength, always winning everything on 2s unless it's a vehicle, and then it's -4 D3 damage each. I think that's really great. Except Cosmic Tyrant shooting out 2 powers a turn could very well be better. So I don't actually know. I'd have to play that out a few times to get that, but it's pretty good. Ghost Arc, same rules. It just went down 10 points. So it was 170 points before, so I always found it to be pretty pricey. 160 points brings it more in line with the fact that it's the equivalent of like 10 Necron Warriors in shooting, except it's considerably more durable, and it gives other Warriors reanimation protocols. So it's only 40 more points. Oh, it's 40 points more than 10 Necron Warriors. Doom Scythes are pretty much all the same, except they have the one stratagem that affects them. Their weapon is still heavy, so they're only really hitting on 4s unless you're playing the Sautek Dynasty, which ignores moving and firing heavy. So if you want to bring Doom Size, you bring them in the Sautek Dynasty, obviously. Makes most sense. Night Size, the exact same. Nothing to really mention. Obelisks, the same. And then finally, the Tesseract Vault. Now, I don't know, maybe Games Workshop wants to sell some of these models because they're pretty amazing now. The most notable change, obviously, their biggest weakness is only having a 3-up armor save. Now they have a 4-up invulnerable save. They didn't have that before. They just gave it to them. And I think it's like 4 points more expensive. I would pay 4 points for a 4-up invulnerable save on such a massive model. Especially when it heals, well, I guess it only heals 1 wound every turn with Living Metal. Most notably though, most notably for this vault is the fact that it knows 4 powers of the Catan, and it can use 3 of them. Oh, sorry, 3 of them. Oh, it can use 3 of them at full wounds. Once it's at a half wound, it's only 2, and then once it's in its last bracket, it's only 1. And that's actually pretty much it for the Tesseract Vault, until you start looking at the actual powers of the Satan, just because they're all better when they're thrown from the vault. I'll go back to Antimatter Meteor as an example, because that's the most familiar one, and I can do Times Arrow as well. So on a 2-up, it's D3 mortal wounds. On a 6-up, it's D6 for the new Antimatter Meteor. Now, if you use it from a vault, it's 2-up still, but on a 5-up, it's D6 mortal wounds. So and that kind of pattern continues for the rest of the powers in the way such as Times Arrow. You pick an enemy unit, or like a model in that, if you roll over a wound characteristics of a model in that unit, it is slain. So that's often used for characters. Say a character's got 4 wounds, you roll a 5 or 6, it's dead. Now from the vault, you add +1 to that roll. So all of a sudden you're killing characters with 6 wounds on a roll of 6, because you get 6 to a 7. And that's huge. A lot of characters have 5 or 6 wounds, so that +1 to their roll actually gives you a pretty good chance of killing, especially if they have 5 wounds. Especially if you have a 1 in 3 chance of just killing their 5 wound character. Bam, like that, no problem. And you can command point reroll that too if you wanted to. Next up, we actually have the new rules. Now that I am sort of done rambling. Now we have the Dynastic Codes. These are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new Dynasty traits that the Necron players get to work with. And everything in your army can use these traits other than a short list, which I'll go into right now. Also one thing to note is, of course, the Immortals and Necron Warriors get the boots on the ground role, where they control objectives over other types of units, unless they also have the same special rule. So it's no surprise there. So everything in this book can use these traits except for these named characters. Andrakir the Traveler, Illuminor Caesaras, just those 2 named characters actually, and then of course the Triarch units and the Satan units. The Triarch units being that they're not actually part of a dynasty, they work for the Triarch, right? The kind of the government head of the Necrons, or the leading heads of the Necrons. There's like 3 leaders, and they all serve the Silent King, who's gone off on his own a little while ago. I actually still have yet to read the story in this book, so I don't know what's actually changed. But yeah, no Triarch, Praetorians, or Stalkers benefit from any of these following traits. Also, the shards. The shards don't belong to any dynasty as well. They are their own thing. The first one, the Sautek one, is Relentless Advance. I know a lot of you, if you've been following any releases for the Necrons, you'll know what all these do already. This one is, if a unit with this code advances, it treats all ranged weapons it is equipped with as assault weapons until the end of the turn. An example would be a Rapid Fire 1 weapon is treated as an Assault 1 weapon, and a Heavy D6 weapon is treated as an Assault D6 weapon. In addition, Unless it has advanced this turn, a unit with this code does not suffer a penalty to hit rolls for moving and firing heavy weapons. If you're playing Sawtech, your entire army can move and fire heavy weapons, just as a flat rule. So that helps with, I think, only the Doom Scythe, if I think about it. Because it doesn't work for the Triarch Stalker with his heavy weapons, just because the Stalkers can't benefit from these codes. So it might only help the Doom Scythe. But that means that Doom Scythe is actually hitting on 3s when it targets things on the ground, which is nice. Other than that, what I would mainly use this Dynasty code for is if you're playing an army with a lot of Immortals and a lot of Warriors. Simple as that. Everything else in the army is pretty fast already. Like Tomb Blades don't really need it. Destroyers don't really need it, but they might. That's the thing, right? Destroyers and Tomb Blades might need it, so I would still play them in this Dynasty for sure. So that means all your Necron warriors are moving. Like the first turn, if you ever played Necrons before, you'll know that your warriors only really get to move up a little. They move up their 5 inches. Nothing's really in range, and you're kind of screwed. And if you advance, you're not shooting, so you're screwed either way. So you might as well usually just advance the first turn and don't get much out of it. Now you can advance and shoot all of your weapons at, well, hitting on 4s for the most part, unless you have modifiers like my will be done and stuff like that. I think that is my favorite one. Is it the best one? I don't know. I mostly say this because I was hoping that the Necron Codex wasn't going to have the generic -1 to hit over 12 inches or the 6 up to ignore damage after they suffered damage, or 6 up to ignore wounds, or whatever it was. I wanted unique things, and we got 5 unique traits, which I am very happy with. That's the first one. I would use it with a lot of infantry spam. Tons of infantry spam. That use guns, you use this. If you're going to use infantry that are melee, there's another one for that. Next one up is Mefrit, Solar Fury. Each time a model with this code shoots an enemy unit that is within half range of its weapon's maximum range, the armor penetration characteristic of that weapon is improved by 1. So anything with, like, the God's Flare is -1 AP. When you're in rapid fire range or half range, it's -2 AP. Which is something that they needed against vehicles. Now they can really tear vehicles apart. 3-up armor save vehicles only have a 5-up against Gauss weapons, and removing most medium vehicles on 5s anyways. So that's huge. What I would suggest use this trait for, or at least what I would use this Dynasty code for, is a very Alpha Strike heavy list. And there's a stratagem that really helps with Alpha Striking. And when I say Alpha Striking, I mean you bring a Monolith and a Night Scythe, and you have a Shard of the Deceiver, and you essentially, the Shard of the Deceiver lets you redeploy units. So at the beginning of the game, you redeploy the Deceiver and D3 units. Hopefully you get 2 or more. You have your Night Scythe and your Monolith redeploy 12 inches away. 12 inches away. And then at the beginning of your movement phase, you disembark like a vehicle. They both pump out a squad of warriors or immortals or something, and all of a sudden they're in rapid fire range. That's 40 shots from each squad of warriors that are all at -2 AP. That's definitely something worth trying to do. That is, I think, huge. And you can just play a normal Necron list with warriors and immortals just slowly walking up the board, and by the time they actually get in a rapid fire range, well, they're rewarded for it with that -AP, that bonus -AP. But if you're playing with the Deceiver, you could really speed that up to turn 1, and I don't know, before you could almost delete anything you wanted to with 40 Necron warrior shots because of the -1, but now the -2 really helps it out. Not to mention, this also gives Tesla weapons AP -1 in half range. So if you want to do Tesla Immortals coming out of a Monolith, and that is 20 shots with Tesla Immortals into, I don't know, a squad of Orc Boys or something with really low armor save, or heck, even anything with a 3-up armor save now, it's pretty reliable, 2-up even, to a 3-up. That's pretty reliable against, because they're in half range, they're AP -1 in their Tesla weapons now, and they're doing a ton of hits at strength 5. I would say that, well, that makes Tesla weapons even better than the Gauss Blasters. The Gauss Blasters are alright, but I tend to like the Tesla weapons more, which I'm sure a lot of you will agree. Next up, we have Novak, Awakened by Murder. You can reroll failed hit rolls in the fight phase for units with this code if they have charged, were charged, or performed a heroic intervention this turn. That pretty much covers all bases of combat units. So if you're running a Canoptic heavy list, like if you got nothing but Rays and Scarabs and Spiders, you got Flayed Ones in there and Lich Guard, you just absolutely love the Necron melee combat list. Novak is obviously your choice. They have the stratagem that is the generic, like, 3 command points at the end of the combat phase, fight again stratagems. That's their unique stratagem. It's a simple one. It's you charge, you want to kill, obviously you want to kill whatever you get into combat right away, because you only have that one turn of rerolls unless you're charged by something else, which I don't think an opponent would give you unless they plan on taking that unit out. But yeah, it's really great with flayed ones, really great with Lich Guard, really great with Wraiths. Can't think of anything else really. Obviously anything that charges in combat. You have 20 Necron warriors, they charge in. Hopefully you get 20 attacks, you get to reroll your hits. It's not bad. Or even better yet, you have your warriors and immortals that love to get charged so much by your enemy, you get to at least reroll hits back. It's not the worst. I think it's really cool. These are all really cool so far. The next one is Nihilic, aggressively territorial. Reroll hit rolls of 1 for units with this code whenever they shoot, including when firing Overwatch, as long as they did not move in the preceding movement phase and they have not disembarked from a transport during this turn. So that's similar to the Cadian trait, or can't remember, Regimental Doctrine. Anyways, if they don't move, they reroll once they're shooting. That's pretty great. It's pretty good. Necrons don't have a whole lot of rerolling 1s. They do have a whole lot of ways to make them hit on 2s. So there's a lot of good synergy there. You have a squad of 20 warriors or destroyers that didn't move, and Overlord gives them, boom, my will be done, +1 to hit. All of a sudden they're hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s. That's something worth mentioning. But I feel like that's better for like mid to late game when you don't need to move as much. Or I don't know, even then you're moving a lot. It's great if you're going to parking lot. But when you're playing in tournaments or you're playing any objective-based game and you're playing Necrons, you're going to try and move it the most you can. I probably won't be using Nihilic, but it's quite fluffy. It's right to their play style. They're aggressively territorial. They're going to pick one part on the map. They're not going to move, and they're going to say, well, if you come to me, I'm going to shoot you, and I'm going to reroll my 1s, and that's about it. I don't know what I would use specifically for that. If I had to throw down a random Nihilic list right now, it would be Doomsday Arcs. It would be probably like 3 Doomsday Arcs, if not more. 60 Warriors or 40 Warriors and 10 Immortals with Tesla. I would literally just, nothing but shooting, stand still. Maybe some like Wraiths or Lich Guard just to protect my lines. Like 1 unit of those. And that would be my Nihilic list right off the top of my head. And I think that would do pretty well with all the rerolling 1s that they get, especially with the Doomsday Arcs and the Tesla Immortals, and all of that jazz. Nepharic is the last one. This is Translocation Beams. Now, because of a stratagem, this could potentially be one of the most powerful ones. I do like this trait a lot too, because it's pretty neat, and it's really unique. So it's an advanced-based retreat, or not retreat, trait. It's if a unit with this code advances, add d6 to its move characteristic for that movement phase instead of rolling a dice. And you just flat out move 6. You don't have to roll the dice, you always move 6. The second part to this is, in addition, if a unit with this code advances, its models can move across models and terrain as if they were not there. So it's like better fly. All your units have better fly because they don't have to measure that. You just treat it as if it's not there. You just boop, go forward, go forward, go forward. And it's your first turn, everything, all your warriors, all your mortals moving 11 inches. Not to mention if you have bikes, they're moving 16 inches, or destroyers moving 16 inches. Turn 1, you're not shooting at all, granted, because you're not allowed to shoot a lot of those weapons if they advance, unless they're assault weapons, which there's not a lot of those are. One thing to note is also mentions if you have My Will Be Done on, which gives you +1 to your chart advances and charges and to hit, you move a flat 7. So it does kind of cover that. Now, I think that's really cool and really neat. It really helps you turn 1 get into an amazing position because that's a fixed move characteristic, right? When you deploy, you can deploy knowing you're going to move 11 inches on your first turn with a lot of your infantry. That's a lot of power to know that. So that's worth mentioning. But it's not my favorite. Again, going back to Sotek, that's my favorite. I greatly like the always moving, always shooting Necron warriors. I think it's really good. But the stratagem, which I'm about to get into for Nepharic, is quite powerful, and you'll see why. Next up, we have stratagems. These ones I'm going to go into a little bit of detail and how I would use them. Some of them kind of explain how to use them right there anyways. There's like no other way to use them. The first one is Enhanced Reanimation Protocols. You're familiar with this from Chapter Approved. You just pick a unit and you get to reroll 1s. It still costs 2 command points. Pretty pricey. Probably wouldn't use it all that much. Wrath of the Satan. You use this after your shard from your army has resolved the power of the Satan. Roll a d6 to randomly select the power of Satan for page 13, and they can immediately use that power rolled, even if it has already been used this phase. So essentially the way that works is at the end of your movement phase, you throw out a power, you spend 2 command points, so it's pretty pricey. If it was 1, it would be amazing though. And you roll a d6 and you automatically use one of those powers from that chart, and you just follow the same rules. You pick a target, you resolve the power, and bam, done. It's almost like a desperation stratagem. You're running out of options, and your power really failed, and you really need to try and do it again. You throw 2 command points out the window and try it again. Again, I don't see myself using it all that much because out of all of these stratagems, I don't know, I like about 75% of them a lot. And I know I'll be blowing through my command points on turn 1 or 2 nearly every game, which sucks because I like to save my command points for automatically passing morale checks. Next one is emergency invasion beams. So this one is relevant to monoliths and the Night Size. With them, I'm sure a lot of you have had games where they've just flat out died. And anything that was on the Tomb World automatically dies with them if you have nothing else to bring them up from the Tomb World. Now you spend 1 command point when they're destroyed. Let's say your monolith is destroyed and you have 10 immortals on the Tomb World. Well, you spend 1 command point and you're allowed to immediately disembark them before the monolith is destroyed. Now, is it before or after it blows up? When the last Night Scythe is destroyed. It's before you remove it from the battlefield. And you immediately set up one of your units from the Tomb World, wholly within 3 inches of it. And more than 1 inch away from enemy models. So if it's surrounded and it's being destroyed in melee combat, then you can't use this stratagem, unfortunately. But at least you have your 1 command point stratagem to save your units from the Tomb World. Of course, you can only use, in match play, you can only use the same stratagem once per phase. So hopefully you don't lose 2 things. Or I guess hopefully you don't have 2 units in the Tomb World when they're destroyed. But yeah, there's a way to save them because it's automatically just come out, they disembark immediately. The next one is amalgamated targeting data. You use this in your shooting phase if this is the Doom Scythe one. So you have to have 3 Doom Scythe armies. They all have to be, you have to have 3 Doom Scythes. They all have to be within 6 inches of each other. And instead of shooting, they use this ability. It's similar to the Vindicator one. It's 1 command point. You just pick a spot and you roll a die on a 4-up. They take 3d3 mortal wounds, except if it's a character, it's on a 5-up. And if it's got more than 5 models, it's on a 3-up. Simple as that, except you use this in the shooting phase. And your Doom size move, I think it's like, 20 to 60 inches? So they could be anywhere they want to be, and they could target any location. So they have that mobility over Vindicators. So that's just a strictly better than Vindicator one, I feel. I mean, there's different situations, of course, because you have to be careful how you position your flyers, or else they fly off the table, stuff like that. The next one is the Dynastic Heirlooms. This is the one that 1 command point you get to take an extra heirloom, or 3 command points you get to take 2 extra heirlooms, or relics. Enhanced Invasion Beams. This one really helps, I feel, against, what was it called? Sorry. The Mephrit Solar Fury, where you get the bonus AP. Use the stratagem before you set up a unit from a Tomb World using the Invasion Beams ability of a Night Scythe, or Eternity Gate of a Monolith. Instead of setting up 1 unit, you can set up 2 units. So again, if you have your Deceiver and you have your Monolith or double Monolith or Monolith and Night Scythe, one of them is allowed to pop out 2 units. So you can have 3 units on the Tomb World and they could all come out on turn 1. That could be 60 Necron Warriors with 120 shots, all at -2 AP if you're playing Mephrit. All that does is really help with Alpha Strike or really getting units deep in enemy territory. You're just playing maybe just a normal basic game. You like using monoliths normally. They come down. Hopefully they don't die. And then next turn you pump out 2 units a turn. Bam, bam. But I mean, I would never put 4 units in the Tomb World. That's way too risky. But like just having 2 units in the Tomb World, maybe having a Night Scythe as a backup, or at least you have Enhanced Invasion Beams. Use this before you step a unit from. I'm just reading to see if these work together. Actually, you can melee. No, you can't use the Invasion Beam and Enhanced Invasion Beam. Emergency Invasion Beam and Enhanced Invasion Beam together. Oh well. Still, really helps with Alpha Strike. Solar Pulse. Use this stratagem after a Necron unit from your army has declared as targets in the shooting phase, but before any hit rolls are made. You pick one of the enemy units that your unit is targeting. They do not receive the benefit of cover. So you can ignore cover for 1 command point. That won't come up a lot. It might, actually, but it's nice the option is there. As simple as that, you just ignore cover for 1 command point. Resurrection Protocols. Now, this one is unique and cool. This one essentially use the stratagem when a Necron character from your army, excluding Trays in the Infinite, and any of your shards are slain. At the end of that phase, roll a d6 on a 4-up, set that character up again, as close as possible to his previous position and more than 1 inch away from enemy models, with one wound remaining, and the stratagem cannot be used to resurrect the same character more than once. So all your named characters, all your not named characters except for Trazen and your shards, come back on a 4-up. And it's not like you can stop them from coming back. You can't like have, your opponent can't put 50, 100 models where he died. He'll just pop up 1 inch away from them as nearest to his position, or more than 1 inch away, as nearest to his death position as possible on a 4-up. And you can command point reroll that. Your characters, your Warlord, might not die, and he'll come back with 1 wound. I think that's super cool. It might not actually work because there's going to be those times where you just don't get the 4-up. I might actually use that almost all the time. I love my Overlord. I love it when he doesn't die, so that's great. You can be really aggressive with your Overlord and bring him back. Damage protocol override. Pick a Necron vehicle. Or you use this at the start of any of your turns. Until the end of your turn, use the top row of that vehicle's damage table, regardless of how many wounds it has left. So your Monolith is down to 2 wounds. You spend 1 command point at the start of your turn. He's treated as if he's got full wounds, so he can move his full distance, he can shoot his full capabilities, all of that. Same thing with your other vehicles. It's 1 command point, pretty useful, especially with the amount of damage like a Doomsday Arc or a Monolith can put out. Repair subroutines is 2 command points. You see at the start of your turn, before making reanimation protocols for a unit of canoptic unit, they can use the reanimation protocol rules. That's just like chapter approved. It hasn't changed, still 2 command points. I never really used it a lot in the past. There are obviously a few times you want to, when you have a unit of 6 raids and there's only 1 puttering around and it's not in a really dangerous position, you might get 2 or 3 raids back for 2 command points. That's usually pretty worth. Self-destruction, this one's kind of cool because this one's for Scarabs. It essentially lets your Scarabs blow up in combat and do D3 mortal wounds to wherever they attacked. So you spend 1 command point when they go to pile in, and you select the unit, they pile in. But before they make any of their close combat attacks, and an enemy unit within 1 inch of them after they pile in, boom, it's a 2-up, that's right, it's not automatic, it's a 2-up, they take D3 mortal wounds. You remove one of your bases, and your enemy takes D3 mortal wounds. That's pretty good for suicide bombing into vehicles, or suicide bombing into really elite or like heavy weapon teams, because your Scarabs can get around pretty quickly. 1 command point, pretty neat, kind of cool. I like watching Scarabs blow up and kill stuff. Simple as that. They never did that before. I can't remember the Scarabs ever blowing up before and doing damage to stuff, like little suicide bombers. If they have, leave a comment, because I can't remember. They might have actually in the past. Disruption fields. Use this before a Necron infantry unit from your army fights in the fight phase. Increase the strength characteristic of all models in the unit by 1 until the end of the phase. And that's only for infantry. So the only thing I can see that working for are Lich Guard. Mainly, with War Scythes. I mean, you can use it for any infantry thing, but that makes your Lich Guard with War Scythe strength 8. And that is a big strength to have, because that's all of a sudden wounding toughness 4 things on 2s. That's wounding heavy vehicles on 4s, medium vehicles on 3s. That's pretty much like the best. Like strength 8 is like the perfect strength. Well, I mean, okay, strength 9 or 10 is the perfect strength, but strength 8 on like a 10-man squad with 2 attacks each, that's a ton of damage. That's only 1 command point. I'll probably use that every time I can, or every time it's relevant at least. Next one is Entropic Strike. This one is really unique. I like this one a lot as well. 1 command point. Use the stratagem in the fight phase before a Necron character from your army fights. Invulnerable saves cannot be taken against the first close combat attack made by this character this phase. That is, again, when you're playing 40k, usually the rule is you're supposed to roll 1 die at a time when resolving everything. So that's only for, say your Overlord's got 3 attacks. You do the first attack separate, and there's no invulnerable saves allowed against that attack. So 1 command point. It could be pretty clutch, though. It's just one of the unique things in the game that ignores invulnerable saves. There's not a whole lot of things that ignore invulnerable saves other than mortal wounds. Dispersion Field Amplification. This is the next one, 2 command points. This is a Lich Guard with Dispersion Shield specific one. Now, I like this because it's not at the beginning of your shooting phase you activate it. You use this when your Lich Guard is shot at. So your unit's invulnerable save is improved to 3+ until the end of the phase. When they're targeted by an attack, 2 command points. I wish it was 1, I really do, but it might be too good a 1. For 2 command points, their 4-up invulnerable save goes to a 3-up. So Lich Guard finally have their 3-up invulnerable save back, but it costs you 2 command points every time, which is pretty pricey. And the second bonus to that is they deflect shots again. So they have the best of the 5th edition rules and the 7th edition rules where they can deflect shots. So on an unmodified roll of 6, when making a saving throw with their shield, you bounce a mortal wound back to whatever shot you. Simple as that. We have to do it after they finish all their shooting attacks. I would probably use that, because I like to bring Dispersion Shield, Lich Guard all the time, I'd probably use that almost all the time. Except, this is what I mean by I'll be blowing through all my command points rapidly. Quantum Deflection is the next one. This one works with Quantum Shielding. When an enemy unit targets a vehicle in your army that has quantum shielding, but before any hit rolls are made until the end of the phase, subtract 1 from rolls made for your quantum shielding ability. If damage is ignored for each unsaved wound. To see if damage is ignored, sorry. It's 1 command point, it's not bad, but you have to do it before any hit rolls are made. So it kind of sucks if your opponent's kind of throwing dice really fast and those little awkward moments come up. Except, I'm trying to think of if this would be, it's hard because you usually get pretty confident. I wouldn't use it against las cannons or like meltas or rocket launch crack missiles and stuff like that because it's pretty reliable. You're gonna like ignore those. Except with this, you automatically ignore them. So say you take well, not automatically. You have a better you automatically ignore 6 damage, and you're more likely to ignore 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So essentially, with quantum shielding, this is the same rule as before. Say las cannon hits your vehicle with quantum shielding, you take 6 damage. Your opponent rolls 6 damage. You roll a d6. If you roll under the amount of damage they dealt, you ignore all damage. So they do 6 damage, you roll a 5, you're fine. But with this, you automatically ignore that 6 because your 5 turns into a 6, and then you ignore the damage. Or sorry, no, your 6 turns into a 5 if you roll it because you have to roll under. That's what I meant. And you could use it for plasma because that means you're ignoring plasma being the hardest counter I find to Necron vehicles. Supercharged plasma or even normal use plasma because it's enough AP to get through the armor and enough strength to wound on 3s. Overcharged plasma, that is. As well as just normal plasma against like a Ghost Ark or barges. On a 2, you ignore damage on a 1 or 2. So it's 1 command point. It's not the worst. If your vehicle is ever in range to get rapid fired by plasma and it's all supercharged, then yes, I would use it for sure. Next one is extermination protocols. You use it in your shooting phase before shooting with the destroyer lord, a unit of destroyers, or a unit of heavy destroyers for an army. You reroll failed hit and wound rolls for that unit until the end of the phase. That's 1 command point. Use every time. It's just amazing. It makes destroyers even better than they were. Again, guys, destroyers went up to strength 6 on their guns, 3 shots each, and now for 1 command point, every shooting phase, you have 6 of them. Flat reroll hits, flat reroll wounds, every time. I don't see anything wrong with that. That's probably one of the best stratagems in the book. Just because, well, a little biased because I like destroyers so much. Next one is the fair. I'm trying to speed up here because I'm kind of wasting your time here. I'm just rambling on. The Pharaon's Will. The Pharaon's Will. I can never pronounce that word. Pharaon? Like a pharaoh, but a pharaon. Anyways, use it from your when your overlord uses their my will be done or wave of command if they're on a barge or a catacomb command barge. You can immediately use the ability for a second time this turn, but the following rule, the same rule applies where you can't target the same unit twice with my will be done. Not that you'd want to for the most part, but anyways, start your turn. My will be done something. 1 command point. My will be done something else. That's pretty good. That really helps with. Well, I'm thinking of the relic with the Veil of Darkness because you could have a squad of warriors with +1 to hit, and then the Veil of Darkness, the squad of Lich Guard up. They're charging +1, hitting +1. It's really good. Adapt to subroutines. Use this stratagem after a canoptic unit from your army has advanced. This unit can still shoot and or charge his turn. Another huge stratagem for wraiths. Or spiders, I suppose, if you really want to use it for spiders. Your wraiths can advance and charge every turn for 1 command point. So not only can they fall back and charge, they can also advance and charge as well. I mean, you can't do both of those at the same time, but just can you imagine the mobility your wraiths have now? Not to mention the wraiths are -2 damage each. You're going to see wraiths all over the place again. At least that's my prediction. They're 3 up and vulnerable save. And now we're getting to the last page of stratagems, and then the powers, and then the artifacts, and I'll sign it off there, I swear. Dimensional Corridor. This is the next one from 1 command point. An infantry unit from your army that is more than 1 inch. Use this stratagem at the start of your movement phase. Select an infantry unit from your army that is more than 1 inch away from enemy models and remove it from the battlefield. Then set it up again so that it is wholly within 3 inches of a monolith from your army and more than 1 inch away from enemy models. So it lets you redeploy your infantry near a monolith. The thing that sucks the most, the one thing I was hoping Necrons got was a way to get their infantry out of combat without falling back. When I originally read this one, I thought that was it. I'm like, yes, bring a monolith, and you don't have to fall back your Necron warriors or immortals anymore. They can just shoot every turn. Except you can't use it if they're already within 1 inch of an enemy unit. So that means you can't use it if you're already in combat. So that kind of sucks. I don't see myself using this one all that much, but mobility is important in 8th edition 40k, so this gives Necrons more mobility options if you bring a monolith, and specifically only a monolith. Juggernaut of the Triarch. Use the stratagem before a unit of Triarch Praetorians from your army shoots in the shooting phase. or fights in the fight phase, you get to add 1 to hit rolls. So I'd probably just use that for the fight phase, plus 1 to hit in combat, hitting on 2s. It's pretty good. Their shooting is not the best. It's okay. Their Rod of the Covenant is strength 5, -3, 1 damage. So you could be hitting on 2s with that, but you could also be hitting on 2s in combat, which is double the attack. So it's just better that way. You could also use it for both. You can spend 1 command point in the shooting phase to have plus 1 to hit, and the combat phase, 1 command point to plus 1 to hit. That's going to cost you a lot over time, though. My butt's getting a little upset here. I'm sitting in an uncomfortable stool. Poor choice by me. Gravitic Singularity is the next one. At the start of your shooting phase, select an obelisk from your army. When resolving this model's gravity pulse ability this phase, each enemy unit within range that can fly suffers D3 mortal wounds on a 4-up instead of a 6. So essentially, the obelisk, if you're familiar with it, has an ability. I think it's like an 18-inch bubble. Oh, it gets lower the more wounds it takes, but on a 6-up, any enemy unit that can fly takes D3 mortal wounds. Now with this 1 command point stratagem, it's on a 4-up. And a lot of things in 8th edition 40k have the fly keyword, not just the flyer models, like assault troops or that's the only thing that comes to mind. Anything else with fly though, like a lot of stuff in the Necron Codex has fly, a lot of Eldar stuff has fly, all that stuff, right? Cosmic powers. This is like Chaos Familiar, where you can swap out one of your powers for the shards. At the start of your movement phase, select a shard from your army. This model can replace one of its powers with a different power. Now you do this at the start of your movement phase, and you use your powers at the end. So that gives you don't have to like wind up a turn. You can do it right away at the start of your movement phase, and then you have the power you exactly need for each situation. You can just swap your power out every turn and have the perfect power for every situation. It just costs you a command point every turn, which might be worth it. I don't know. I think I just like to have options, and that's really cool. It's going to be hard to remember, as Chaos Familiar tends to be hard to remember, but really powerful, I think. Again, it just goes toe-in-toe with how much better the shards are. And I thought the shards were pretty cool before. Now we're on to the 5 unique stratagems for each dynasty. And this is where you'll see where the Nephrek one is really good. You know what? I'll just start with the Nephrek one. It's in the middle. It's 1 command point. That is the biggest thing, 1 command point. Use this stratagem during deployment. You can set up a unit of infantry or swarms from your army in a crypt, translocation crypt, instead of placing it on the battlefield. At the end of your movement phase, this unit can translocate into battle. Set it up anywhere that is more than 9 inches away from enemy models. 1 command point, deep strike any infantry or swarm in your army. That's, like again, it goes back to the 20 warriors rapid firing right away on turn 1. I mean, of course, you can only use this with the Nephrek one, which is the advancing automatic 6, and you just ignore terrain and models and everything. But the fact that you could do that, you could just have every game, all 3 squads or warriors rapid firing right away. Like the guarantee of that for 3 command points is almost too good to pass up. That is huge. That is very powerful, and you're going to be seeing that a lot, I find. People are going to be playing Nephrek just for that stratagem. I could be wrong, but that is insane. We'll go into the normal ones now. It's the Saltec one. Methodical Destruction. This is 2 command points. Use a stratagem after a Saltec unit from your army has inflicted an unsaved wound on an enemy unit. So you already have to wound them first. Add 1 to the hit rolls for friendly Saltec units that target the same enemy this phase. So that's hitting or shooting or close combat. It's going to be mostly used for shooting. So for 2 command points, so again, your whole army turn 1 is going to advance and can shoot, or it can advance and shoot every turn, but that's going to be at -1 because they advance, because they're assault weapons. Now, this kind of counteracts that. If your whole army targets the same thing, it's 2 command points, and you kind of ignore the penalty for advancing and shooting your new assault weapons. That's just great synergy with that's what you want to see with your dynasty. You're playing a dynasty for a reason. You want to see synergy in all things of that dynasty. So I like that. It's 2 command points. It's pretty pricey, but it gives your entire army +1 to hit, if you think about it, if you're targeting the same thing. That often doesn't come up, though, especially when I'm playing here at MiniWarGaming. You have a lot of terrain on the field, tons of line of sight blocking. It's really hard to pick one target and shoot your entire army at it. Reclaim a Lost Empire. This is the Nihilic one. Nihilic was the aggressively territorial, where they don't move, they get to reroll 1s when they shoot. At the end of your turn, select a Nihilic unit from your army. If the unit is within 3 inches of an objective marker, or if it did not move for any reason during its turn, then the unit, until the start of your next turn, you can add 1 to saving throws made for that unit and increase the attack characteristics of model in that unit by 1. +1 to saving throws are pretty good. Again, it comes to, I'm thinking of, because it's any unit from your army, so I'm thinking of Wraiths. If they're camping an objective, they haven't moved. 2 up and vulnerable save on Wraiths, so that's something worth mentioning. For This all, again, 2 command points though. If you want a combo for 4 command points, you have 2 up and vulnerable save on Lich Guard, or just 3 up and vulnerable save on them. Or again, Immortals will have 2 up save, and if you have cover, you have a 1 up save. It's 2 command points for pretty durable guys. If they haven't, you can't move it all though, so it's really restrictive. Again, like I said earlier with the Satek one, it plays well into the dynasty you're picking. You're picking that dynasty for a reason. You don't want to move, and you want to stay where you are. 2 command points, there you go, you're fine. The next one, Blood Rites, Novak. This is the one I mentioned earlier. You pay 3 command points, you fight again at the end of the fight phase. You see it all over the place in the other codexes. It just makes sense. It fits right in with Novak. Because that's what they want to do. They want to fight. Talent for Annihilation. This is Mefrit. This is the dynasty that gets an additional AP when they're in half range. Use the stratagem before a Mefrit unit from your army attacks in the shooting phase. Each time you make an unmodified hit roll of 6 for a model in that unit, you can make 1 additional hit roll for that model with the same weapon against the same target. These additional hits cannot themselves generate any further hits. So you see this, I think this is the Mordian one for the Astra Militarum that's the same, and I'm pretty sure it's popped up before. 1 command point. The only thing that sucks is when you're rapid firing, you have to roll each model separately. Because, or do you? Yeah, because it's because it's on a per model basis. Ugh. Oh well. Still pretty good. Again, you're all rapid fire range. You have 40 shots. That's a lot of extra shots on 6s for 40. That's 6 to 7 extra hits. So that's not 1 command point. It's not the worst. But I don't plan on playing Mefrit all that much. I might play 1 or 2 games to try Mefrit out. But my Necrons are painted up Satek, so you'll see Satek mostly. That's it for stratagems. I'm done boring you guys with them. I know I'm killing the time here. We just got the powers and the relics to go. I'll go over the powers and I'll quickly go over the relics. So the powers for this Satan, there's 6 of them, and you pick them when you have a Satan. So the first one's Antimatter Meteor. I already went over it. It's 2 up for D3 mortal wounds, 6 up for D6, and if you have a Tesseract Vault, is on a 5 up. And that's again the same 24 inches, the nearest or the closest visible enemy unit within 24 inches. Times arrow, I mentioned it before, it's the same thing. You pick a visible enemy unit within 18, roll a D6, adding 1 to the result if you're in a vault. If it exceeds the highest wound characteristic in the unit, 1 model from that unit chosen by its controlling player is slain. But I mean, obviously you're going to pick a lot of characters with that one, because it bypasses the character rule. You just pick anything within 18. Sky of Falling Stars. This is a new one. Pick up to 3 different enemy units that are within 18 inches of the shard. Roll a d6. You subtract 1 from the result if the shard is using this from a vault. If the result is less than the number of models in the unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. An unmodified roll of 6 will always fail. So 6s always fail. You have to roll under the amount of models in the unit, which is not hard, except you could potentially hit characters with that, only if you're in a vault, because the 1 down to a 0. But pretty sure that's how that one would work. It's just up to 3 units can take D3 mortal wounds within 18. And I don't think it's as good as some of the other ones, but it's okay. It's not bad. Definitely not bad. Cosmic Fire. This is a new one. Roll a D6 for each enemy unit within 9 inches of the shard. Add 1 to the result if it is from a vault. On a 4-up, they take D3 mortal wounds. So this one is half the range of Sky Falling Stars. So essentially everything within 9 inches of your shard or your vault is taking D3 mortal wounds on a 4-up. Now that one is huge. If you're in a vault, it's a 3-up. Everything within 9 inches of the vault takes D3 mortal wounds. That's a ton of mortal wounds, guys. Especially if you're getting like your shards, like your character shards in close combat. It's just a ton of mortal wounds. It's huge. That one's awesome. Very good. Seismic Assault. This one is, I think, pretty much one of the old ones. Yeah. So pick a visible enemy unit within 24 inches of the shard. Roll a d6 for each model in the unit, adding 1 if you're in a vault. For each roll of 6-up, that unit suffers a mortal wound. Now, for a 5-up, they suffer a mortal wound if they're in the vault. So you pick a squad of 30 boys. That is 10 boys dead. On average, that's 10 mortal wounds because you're going to roll 10 5-ups. You could skew higher. You could kill 15 of the boys. That's not a bad power to have. Not to mention, the vault knows 4 power, so it could potentially know this one just in case it needs to hit a horde of boys or a horde of literally anything. The next one, Transdimensional Thunderbolt. This is the final one. This is new as well. Pick a visible enemy unit within 24 inches of the shard and roll a d6. You can only pick a character if it follows the character rules. 10 or more wounds or it's the nearest. Add 1 to the result if you're using this power from a vault. So on a 4-up, 3-up for a vault, the chosen unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. Then roll a d6 for every other unit within 3 inches of the chosen enemy unit. On a 4-up, 3-up if you're in a vault, they suffer an additional mortal wound. So it's like you pick one thing, they take d3 mortal wounds. and everything else within range on a 4-up or 3-up takes another mortal wound. This one's only good because it's 24-inch range. You can use it right at the beginning of the game for the most part, because it's at the end of the movement phase. You get to move first. Though if you're playing in a vault, pretty sure, if I'm to skip over to vault here, it has an obscene amount of movement. Yeah, it moves 15 to 28 inches. Is that right? No, sorry. I read that wrong. It moves 8 inches a turn. So it's not super fast, but you can still advance and use all your powers, right? That's it for all the powers. As you can tell, they're vastly better in every way. None of them got nerfed, and they all just got a little bit better. Now we have, I guess there's some Warlord traits as well. Artifacts, yeah, the Orb of Eternity. It's a buffed up Resurrection Orb. Resurrection Orbs are still 35 points, but you get to add, when you reanimate with it, you get to add +1 to the result. And this stacks with Cryptek's Technomancer ability as well. So you're reanimating on a 3-up if you have a Cryptek nearby. That, I don't know if it's worth taking up a relic slot. It might be. People might actually find that interesting. But I do. It's actually only for infantry as well, which I guess that makes sense because that's the only thing that's reanimating. Void Reaper is upgraded War Scythe. So this is the Void Reaper from previous 7th edition. It replaces the War Scythe. It's Strength X. So this one always moves on 2-up unless it's a vehicle, which it's treated as Strength 7. -4 AP, 3 damage to swing instead of 2. So it's just a flat out way better War Scythe. That's the one I'm probably going to use a lot just because I like my Overlord with the War Scythe. I think they're really cool. Is it the best one? Probably not. Lightning Field. The bearer of the Lightning Field has a 4-up invulnerable save. In addition, roll a d6 for each enemy unit that is within 1 inch of the bearer at the start of the fight phase. On a 4-up, that unit suffers a mortal wound. So you could put that on Cryptek, as they only have a 5-up with the Chronometron, so it gives them a better invulnerable save. And it throws out mortal wounds. I probably won't use that one a lot either. The Nightmare Shroud increases the characteristic save by 1, so you can put that on an Overlord and give him a 2-up save. In addition, every enemy unit subtract 1 from the leadership characteristics while they're within 6 inches of the bearer. That can be huge. Oftentimes it's not. Gauntlets of the Conflagrator. This one doesn't replace anything. Neither did the other two, actually. This is essentially a 1-use only, pistol 1, 8-inch range. This weapon can only be fired once. It automatically hits its target, and you roll a d6 for each model in the target unit that is within 8 inches of the firer. That unit suffers a mortal wound for each roll of 6. So it's a flamer, but it's pistol 1, and it only does mortal wounds on 6s, and that's it. It has no strength, has no AP, no damage. It only does the mortal wounds on 6s. It's not my favorite one. I'm not a huge fan of it. The Veil of Darkness, you're familiar with this one. It's got the same rules. Double checking that one. Yep, same rules. So this one allows you to take the hero with the veil, or the character with the veil, and an infantry unit within 3 inches, and poop, off the table they go, redeploy somewhere else more than 9 inches away from the enemy units, and the infantry unit you brought with you has to be wholly within 6 inches of the character. The Nano Scarab Casket is pretty neat. It replaces the Bearer's Phylactery, so pretty much only a Destroyer Lord. Or, yeah, I think just a Destroyer Lord. You regain, rather than 1 from their living metal ability, in addition, the bearer also regains, so essentially, Phylactery lets you regain D3 wounds from your living metal rule. This one lets you gain D3 wounds at the start of every turn, your turn and your opponent's turn. So not only your turn. So it makes your Destroyer Lord super durable. Not to mention, it gives them the built-in ability where they come back to life on a 4-up with 1 wound, in addition to the Stratagem. So you can use this and the Stratagem on a Destroyer Lord. The Destroyer Lord's like never dying. If you always get your 4-up, he's just never dying. He's always coming back. He's going to be the most obnoxious thing you have on the table. You get the Sempiternal Weave. It increases your toughness and wound characteristics by 1. So it makes your Destroyer Lord toughness 7 with an extra wound, or an Overlord toughness 6 with an extra wound. I probably won't take that one. I don't see why I'd want to. It's only infantry as well, so I think a Destroyer Lord is infantry, because Destroyers are infantry. The Abyssal Staff. It's a Sawtech model only. It replaces the Staff of Light. It pretty much gives the Staff of Light, it automatically hits its target in shooting. It's only 1 shot though. Roll 3d6 if a unit is hit by this weapon in the shooting phase. If the result is equal to or greater than the target's leadership, they suffer d3 mortal wounds. So that's going to happen more often than not, because leadership in 8th edition is generally lower, and you're doing it on 3d6. So it's essentially one shot that's going to do d3 mortal wounds most of the time. Would I take it? I don't know. We got the Cloak, Time Splitter Cloak, Nihilic only. Once per battle, you can roll a single hit, wound, or damage roll for the bearer of this cloak. In addition, roll a dice each time the bearer loses a wound. On a 5-up, they ignore the wound. It just kind of makes your Nihilic model super durable. I probably wouldn't take it. I'm kind of randomly thinking if I would want. I can't think of a reason. The Voltaic Staff is the Mephrit only. It also replaces the Staff of Light. It essentially makes a Staff of Light assault. It's assault 3, strength 6, -3, 2 damage. So it's like better than a Staff of Light in every way. So 1 more attack. Or is it? Yeah, so same attacks I think on the Staff of Light. Anyways, it's strength 6 instead of 5, AP -3 instead of 2, and 2 damage instead of 1. And every time you make a wound roll of 6 up for this weapon, they suffer more wound in addition to the 2 damage it does. The Blood Scythe. This is a really good War Scythe upgrade. Now this is for Novak only, so it's only the Close Combat Dynasty. It's got the normal War Scythe stats, but every time you attack with it, you get D3 extra attacks. So your Overlord's got 3 D3 attacks instead of just 3 flat attacks. That's pretty good. You could actually cleave through a lot of enemy models with that, or really cleave through enemy characters. Especially if you make his first attack ignore invulnerable saves. It's the same profile, strength +2, -4 AP, and 2 damage each though. The Solar Staff is Nephrek only. It replaces the Staff of Light. It's Assault 6 instead of Assault 3. Strength 5, -3, 1 damage. So those are the same, except it's double the shots. Every time an infantry unit is hit by this weapon, on a 4-up, they're blinded until the end of the turn. You cannot fire Overwatch, and your opponent must subtract 1 from any hit rolls made for that unit. So it's like you shoot at, say you're going to charge a nasty close combat unit, you shoot at them and they're -1 to hit. That's about it. Because it only lasts until the end of your turn, so it won't carry over to their turn. So you can't give a good shooty unit -1 to hit for when they go to shoot on their turn. We have Warlord traits. We have Enduring Will. It's the same one where you just you reduce the amount of damage you take by 1 to a minimum of 1. Next one is Eternal Madness. You reroll wound rolls for a Warlord in the fight phase if they charged, or were charged, or performed a heroic intervention. So it kind of goes in tow with the Novak Dynasty trait. Immortal Pride, friendly Dynasty units automatically pass morale tests while they're within 6 inches of your Warlord. And that's good for Necrons because you don't want to fail your morale checks when you're doing reanimation protocols. In addition, your Warlord can attempt to deny 1 psychic power in each enemy psychic phase in the same manner as a Psyker. So when I mentioned that Canoptic Spiders were the only thing that could deny psychic powers, I was wrong. This Warlord trait can also do it. So that's automatically passing morale checks and being able to deny psychic powers on your Warlord is not the worst thing in the world. But I think I do prefer some of the Dynasty-specific Warlord traits over these. Thrall the Silent King, it pretty much increases the range of all your... This one could be pretty good too. So it increases the range of all your aura abilities by 3 inches. So it's essentially like My Will Be Done is 9 inches, Wave of Command is 15 inches. The Technomancer ability on your Cryptex, if you make a Cryptech your Warlord, is 6 inches instead of 3, but it's only for that Cryptech. It actually has some restrictions, so like Explodes isn't longer on a barge. It only increases the range of that model's Technomancer ability if they're a Cryptech, and not that of other Cryptechs. And if your Cryptech has a cloak, it does not affect the distance that the cloak lets you move as well. So it kind of has some built-in restrictions. Implacable Conqueror, you can reroll failed charge rolls for friendly units that are within 6 inches of your Warlord. So just reroll. It's the standard reroll charge Warlord trait for everything within 6 inches. And the last one is Honorable Combatant. If your Warlord targets the same enemy character with all their close combat attacks, add D3 to your attack characteristics until the end of your phase. Now, that one works pretty well with that Novak War Scythe. That's just a ton of attacks into 1 character. So your Novak Warlord is just going to cleave through enemy characters. So if your Warlord targets the same enemy character with all their close combat attacks, add D3 to your Warlord's attack characteristics until the end of your phase. Now, I'm not too sure the order of operations on that. Do you get D3 extra attacks on your profile? D3? Yeah, because you get so you get D3 extra attacks on your characteristics, so you get up to 6 attacks, and then you can do up to 6 D3 attacks against the character if you do all your attacks against the character, ignoring the first invulnerable save. That could do a lot of damage. That's like -4 AP, 2 damage each. That's kind of cool and kind of neat. Next, you have the Dynasty Warlord traits. Named characters have to take certain traits. So, like if a named character is your Warlord, they must be given the associated Warlord trait of their Dynasty. If Imhotep the Stormlord is your Warlord, he must take the Hyperlogical Strategist Warlord trait for Sautek. If Caesarus is your Warlord, he must have the Immortal Pride Warlord trait. And if Enrique the Traveler is your Warlord, he must have the Implacable Conqueror Warlord trait. And that is, what was it? Your Warlord? He must have the Immortal Pride. Immortal Pride, yeah. So Immortal Pride and Implacable Conqueror are the generic ones, because there's not a lot of named characters that actually follow any of these dynasties other than Sautek. So the Sautek one, Hyperlogical Strategist, is the exact same thing as the Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum one, where your Warlord gets to reroll a single hit, wound, or damage roll for your Warlord. In addition, if your army is Battleforged and your Warlord is on the battlefield, each time you spend a command point on a 5-up, you get it back. I'll probably take that one every time because the rate I'll be burning through command points is going to be insane. And I can't see myself getting more than like 9 command points, maybe 10 if I make maybe not the best list. Merciless Tyrant adds 6 inches to the maximum range of all assault weapons fired by your Warlord. This is the Mephrit one, so this is the one that gets the bonus AP at half range. So adding 6 inches to your assault weapons makes your Tesla weapons 30-inch range, and that means they get AP -1 at 15 inches. In addition, your Warlord can shoot assault weapons at enemy characters if they are not the closest enemy model. So you can take a Mephrit Overlord with a nasty Staff of Light, or like an upgraded Staff of Light, and you can just snipe characters with it, which is kind of cool. Nihilic Precognitive Strike. If your Warlord always fights first in the fight phase, even if he didn't charge. If your opponent has units that follow the same rules or is charged, you kind of work it out in order of whoever's turn it is. So it's just the always fight first Warlord trait. It's kind of weird for Nihilic, since they don't... I mean, if they are fighting, it's a good way for your Warlord to defend your units. But other than that, though, it's not my favorite. Neferek. Your opponent must subtract 1 from the hit rolls that target your Warlord. So -1 to hit your Warlord for shooting in close combat. Pretty generic, nothing crazy. Crimson Haze for Novak. Each time you roll an unmodified hit roll for 6 in the fight phase for a model in a friendly Novak unit that is within range of 6 inches of your Warlord, you can make 1 additional hit roll for that model with the same weapon against the same target. And those hits don't generate further hits. So it's every time you roll a 6 to hit with a unit or your Warlord within 6 inches of your Warlord or your Warlord, you get an extra hit. Simple as that. And that pretty much sums it up, guys, other than points and the tactical objectives at the back of the book, which they're your generic Necron ones. So it's all the same ones you've seen from 7th edition, just kind of updated for 8th. So like, yeah, kill a character with your character instead of issue a challenge, stuff like that, right? Or gather all the odd objective markers, gather all the even ones. Nothing really worth mentioning. They're not significant, at least I don't think they are, especially since not everyone plays Maelstrom of War. Anyways, guys, I've been rambling for well over an hour, and if you're still watching this, kudos to you. You're obviously a true fan of listening to me ramble, and maybe a fan of Necrons, I don't know. But with that, I'm going to sign it off. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this review. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my insight. If I missed anything, leave a comment or email me at luka@miniwargaming.com with any of your insight into the Necron Codex or strategies that you are probably going to use with these new rules in the book. Because if there's anything I love, it's learning new things. And with the thousands of minds out there, I'm sure you guys will pick up on something that I haven't picked up on. Because by no means am I an expert. I just happen to play them and really like them a lot. And I have the power to put this video up on YouTube for all of you to listen to and hopefully enjoy. And with that, I'll say happy wargaming and wish you all a good day and or night.